Hello, welcome to Voices of Hope, Infertility as a Path of Learning. My name is Susana Rodriguez. I'm a psychologist at INSER. Today we have the honor of having Luciana Mantero from Argentina. How are you, Luciana? How are you? Thank you for this invitation, to the team, to Lina, Ana Maria, everyone. It's our pleasure. Luciana has a degree in science communication and journalism. In 2015, she published a book, El Deseo Más Grande del Mundo. I had the pleasure of meeting her through this book, where she tells her own story and some testimonies of women that were looking to get pregnant. In 2019, she participated in a project from National Geographic Latin America called Baby on Demand, where she was able to participate and be the host of the show. She covered new family models in the show and everything related to reproductive treatments. Nowadays, she's a speaker, an author, and a guide to couples who are going through infertility. It's an honor to have her here with a talk called The Biggest Wish in the World. Thank you very much, Susana. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, welcome. It's a pleasure to be here in this side of the continent, being able to connect with many people from different places. I'm greeting you from Buenos Aires. I want to tell you that as many of you, when you go through the quest for a baby with difficulty and you experience it in first person, what it means, for some easier or for some more difficult, I've learned a lot. In my case, I'm a journalist, I'm an author, non-fiction. I look in reality good stories to tell. And many people face this situation, those situations that are so unsettling, but that also allow you to grow. I realized there were many people going through infertility. They were coming out that maybe the taboo didn't allow them to share their experience. And I realized it was something to talk about. It was really worth it as literature, not only because of the company, but also for the quality of the stories. So The Biggest Wish in the World came, this book that I wrote, and it turned my world upside down. Because when you write a book, it's like throwing a bottle in the sea. You don't know how is it going to turn out? How is it going to reach people's hearts and minds and spirit? Once it was published, a lot of stories came from hundreds of women around the world that started reading and felt the company. Here I am with you, accompanying this process and letting you know that anyone can go through this. When we are together, it can feel better. We can feel reflected in other people's stories, and you can choose what to take and what not to take in this path. I want to start this talk with a little reading, the prologue of The Biggest Wish in the World. In the Argentinian edition, it tells my story, another 9 stories. In the Spanish version, it adds 2 more stories, 11 stories. The first story goes like this. What happens to women when we look for pregnancy and it takes long? In the time we trace our decision to be a mom, we find that this path of maternity has curves. While we listen to the tick-tock of our biological clock, we look for medicine for help, and we ask ourselves, why is it not like a fairy tale? And we devote our body and soul into that wish that feels like the biggest one in the world. And that can be the beginning of many of our stories. One day, things stop being the way they used to, and everything starts to look more difficult. The ideal family might not come ever. It might take many days and months, or it can take a second. Then you start to live in brackets, and your body transforms to sustain the project of having children. What happens to women that are programmed to be mothers and find out that we cannot? The answer is hiding behind curtains, because outside no one knows how to react. No one knows how to go through that inside. No one knows the instructions. Only some resources through some therapies, and maybe through the stories of others. Then it comes out in whatever way. I could do it writing. This story, the book, starts in an autumn day in 2010 when I was in front of an endocrinologist, a bald man, and in a literary metaphor, I imagine in the book as the bald head of the sperm going towards the egg. And this doctor, with much care, tells me all of a sudden, maybe you won't be able to be a mother with your own eggs. You have premature menopause, ovarian failure, primary ovarian failure. You have to choose between adoption and a donor. I had a baby 3 years ago with much problem, and this shock was very abrupt. I didn't imagine having this kind of news. I felt this deep sadness. I was alone. My husband was on a trip. I walked in the street like a zombie. It was close to the School of Medicine. I sat on the street to cry, and I called him. And the shriek of pain, of it cannot be that this is happening to me, I felt them. I recognized them later when I started listening to the stories of other women. The first thing that happens is this of, why is it happening to me? Why me? Why my motherhood is on the line in such a potent way? And that's why the title of the book, The Biggest Wish in the World. Something is out of control for many of us for the first time. The ones who pretend to have everything in order, and it's a huge lesson. And it's really hard to see it. You have to go through a very long process. Camila, one of the stories, she remembered that moment, and she was gaining awareness of what happened to her. I want to share one fragment of her story. It goes like this. Another glorious weekend at the dawn of fall. A deep lake, turbulent with ducks. A wasted bench where a belly rested. A water fountain. A little trolley. Green spaces, children playing. Trees in bloom, another trolley. A woman rocking her baby, another belly. I'm gonna have to stop coming to the park. The torture of those scenes around her that in long distance always seemed perfect. I would never have children. It was not gonna happen to me. She was walking by Thomas' hand and she didn't say anything, but he stopped to hug her because somehow he felt her sadness. Why me? What did I do wrong? She never thought that she couldn't get pregnant. She didn't meet anyone who faced that situation. When you start to go through this situation, you start to see other women, and you start to see trolleys, babies, bellies. It's such a shock, such a hit to your face. It's so hard to process. thinking about the way of putting this into words, this idea of the possibility of not being a mom, at least not conventionally in the beginning, because you start to accept other paths and embrace them, it occurred to me to take a step back, and I found this text of Federico Garcia Lorca that put into words what it meant to go through infertility. Guillerma, this woman, this story that is dry as dirt, using Lorca's metaphor, a metaphor that is related to not being able to value so many other things and not letting infertility be our identity, but it's something more. And he put all his sensitivity, his male sensitivity, and wrote this story of a woman who couldn't bear children in German that goes like this. Oh, what a meadow of sorrow. Oh, what a closed door to beauty. I ask for a son to suffer, and the air offers me dahlias from the sleeping moon. These 2 springs that I have of warm milk, they are in the thick of my flesh. 2 hoarse pulses that make the branch of my anguish beat. Oh, blind breasts under my dress. Oh, doves without eyes or whiteness. Oh, what a pain of imprisoned blood, sticking wasps in the back of my neck. But you have to come, love, my child, because water gives salt and the earth gives fruit, and our womb bears tender children, like the cloud carries sweet rain. And after these very intense words, the way to describe it, the possibility of not being able to have children, at least conventionally, this moment comes of letting go this fantasy that we all have. A child is gonna come after a very nice and pleasant night, super easy, something associated with happiness, and then finding another meaning, other ways to the way we are guided to go to science and ask for help. And we run towards the arms of medicine, as I was saying, and we find in this place a little bit cold in relation to the image we had, to the fantasy of conception, in a different context of intimacy, high lights. In Argentina, for example, very cold, all the paperwork. And these teams, the medical teams, they try to make it easier and be warm. But this whole search goes through these institutions. And I remember all these looks. Neither one of us wants to be here, but we want to find a way. And we are trying to find explanations from the doctors because of the diagnosis we get. In my case, because it was hard to accept. And finally, we just find that the diagnosis is confirmed, and then the possibility of a treatment opens up. And putting our body in medicine, it's not easy to put into words. To schedule our appointments, our tests, sonograms, very frequent, looking after our period month to month. And we need to do what we need to do with the most happiness and bring our emotions to the table, as I try to do in the book with the stories, talking about putting the body on hysterosalpingogram. Many of you must know this riddle, like Voldemort in Harry Potter, hysterosalpingogram, that used to be like Chinese, and now we can say it backwards. This very invasive test each woman lives it in a different way. Every man goes through it in a different way through infertility. And in my book, it's a choral story. But some woman told me how was it to go through that. For example, Camila, the woman I was talking about, when she had to go through a hysterosalpingogram, she hadn't written in a while. Poetry was a place to hide from the darkness, and when she had to do it, she looked for it in internet. She was so scared, and after many years, she wrote a very scary poem. And in the end, fantasies are not so bad as reality, and it wasn't that bad. But Natalia, one of the protagonists from the book, the doctor didn't tell her what it was like. He didn't advise her to have ibuprofen, do it with company, don't ride. Maybe you need some time off. Natalia went to do it before her mother-in-law's birthday, and she had to cross the whole city in bus for a family meeting. So it's really important to get the information as patients for the doctors to take care of us. And Romina, a woman who adds a lot of humor to life and a lot of humor to everything, she's always going forward. She was a single mother after kicking out her husband because he was making her believe that they wanted to be parents, but he was waiting for her time to be off. So after kicking him out and searching for a daughter or a son through these treatments with an anonymous donor, she remembered when she went to do the hysterosalpingogram, and Romina, in her story, she told me the following. This is what she says. I had a doctor who was always looking in my eyes and give me a lot of detail about what was going to happen. Don't worry, it's just a little menstrual pain. The technician told her when she was getting ready to do this hysterosalpingogram. When they finished, after half an hour, she was told to get down, and she got dressed, took a deep breath, came back. She looked into his eyes and told him, "You're the least likely to tell me that this is a mild menstrual pain because you don't know what menstruation is. Next time that you think about saying something like this, let's do the following." Said Romina, "I'm gonna grab that little tool, the one you use to grab my cervix like a wild beast, and I'm gonna grab your penis, the tip of your penis, and after making you suffer and getting you on a bed, I'm gonna pass the liquid, and when it's well grabbed, I'm gonna say, turn right, turn left, a little bit up, a little bit down, to see if it's just a mild menstrual pain. Do you recognize this?" The technician turned white, but the worst part was on her. Having a high tolerance to pain, she had leave for 2 days. She puts a lot of humor into the stuff, Romina, but it's important to have the proper information and to put our body out there. It's not free, and being able to talk about it. This is one of the things that is very important and that I discovered after talking to hundreds of women, making medicine human, that, well, having these type of encounters, these type of meetings, some centers are focused on making it matter, making things nicer, kinder, looking into our eyes. I remember one doctor that advised before starting a treatment and making a decision for a donor to do couples therapy. And I knew that he was taking care of me. I know it's very hard, it's unsettling. Look for support. These type of things are important, just like the place to talk about this. Susana, on the other side, is going to enlighten us because she's an expert. But one of the things that I discovered too that is key, it's important to have a support group, a therapy, a person where you can talk about all these that we feel, because when we sweep on things under the rug, things don't work. They come out at some point. And then the economical aspect for many of us, it meant an effort to do this type of treatment. There are some countries that cover them, but others not. I know Colombia has a system that is still failing in some aspects, but being able to access these treatments with low resources is tough. And the idea is for it to be more inclusive, to have children with the hand of science. Today we count on this. Our mothers didn't. And being able to find help in medicine. Many couples have to mortgage their houses, their cars, many things. And one of the things when I was talking about making medicine more human, humanizing medicine, I talk about what happens with the social prejudice. The feminine idea has been transformed to something linked to motherhood. Today, less and less. It's the 21st century. Being or not being a mother is not mandatory. In one societies it is, but in others not. We can choose freely if we want to have children, and it doesn't define us as women. But it's something that is really rooted in our ancestral culture that associates femininity with fertility. If you are not a mother, you're less of a woman. It feels like that. In the case of men, the same. When there are problems in fertility, it's associated with manhood, as if they were less virile. In fact, one friend in the office of a sonographer, she remembers always that he was trying to make a joke with the husband. Well, if she comes with a failure, you can return her. Wow, that's amazing. And a colleague from a very traditional province in Argentina, he told me that when there was problem in getting pregnant, the father was told, "What happens? Why cannot you give your woman a child? Are you less of a man?" And we have to be aware that this is so engraved in our system that we have to ask ourselves. And I did it. I asked myself, and I had to deconstruct it to separate the waters. It was not related with my femininity. It was not my fault. It didn't depend on me, that I could do a lot, but in the end, it was a medical issue and that I couldn't control. As I was saying, all this path implies a lot of learning, and a learning for the couple too. The couple is one of the big issues in infertility. What a couple goes through, how they have to reaccommodate. Sometimes it favors them, but sometimes they break up. In the book, I told the story of Andrea and Mariano. while she was crying, processing her grief, doing everything on her own. I don't need you. As if she was collecting the tools for a first homework, and she didn't realize the emotional implication. And her husband, he was making plans and they were getting apart. When they managed to have children, they broke up. There's a beautiful dialogue from Andrea and her husband that I want to show you, because sometimes we see things differently, men and women, and how important is to communicate, to put things on the table. They were on a parking lot outside the office, the doctor's office. We went to the doctor with all the tests. He told me. The doctor said, you have endometriosis and the coagulation of the blood. I would go straight to the treatment. We went out with Mariano to the parking lot. I got in the car and I started crying. I cannot believe it, he says. What is it that you don't believe? That you're crying. Why cannot you believe this? But he said that there was an option, that we could do treatment, that we could have children. No. He told me that I cannot bear children. That's why I had to do the treatment. It was this constant thing. I listened to something and he listened to something else. There was a solution for him and there was a problem for me. And this is very graphic about the way we understand things and how important it is to be soft, kind, to support each other. Women tend to be more emotional, more sensitive. And men, because of a social law, they should be stronger, but they also suffer. One of the stories tells that having a child with a treatment, when this woman, the doctor said, Veronica, to her husband, let's go through another treatment. And he said, I am not going through that ever again. And she realized how hard it had been for him. So it's important to put the emotions on the table. One of the other highlights in fertility, one of the most important things to go through this together as a couple, in case that there's a couple, because many people want to be a single parent, is the intimacy. How not to lose erotism when there's something, a doctor, you have to work, he says, these or those days, the days we ovulate. So I try to use a lot of humor on my book. When I talk about this situation that we all go through, we know. I don't know if it happens to every single couple. I suppose that each one lives it in a different way. But in the search of a son that doesn't come, making love is so practical that it loses all the emotion of the free spirits. The issue interferes with fantasies, conspires against pleasure, it takes away the joy. My gynecologist says, you make love to your partner, not to the calendar. Okay, but leaving our mind outside the bed when you have been searching for so many months and you've been advised to work with intensity those specific days, it's so hard as getting excited in a convent. Erotism and infertility, they should be considered antonyms in a dictionary, and let's leave hypocrisy behind. Someone has the courage to publish Kama Sutra to increase the fertility rates, and let's be pathetic. Let's face it with courage. this idea of disturbed intimacy that we have all being a victim, and I try to talk about it with humor and look the way around it so that flame doesn't turn off, that flame of meeting someone to procreate. In this path, there are also others, the surrounding. And a person told me sometimes your environment wants to take care of you, but sometimes it do more harm. Like sentences like, and you, when? And I think, why are you not getting married and mind your own business? Or like, relax, it's gonna come. Take a trip, go away, a beach, and then you come back pregnant. And those advices that try to be solutions from people that love us, but that we know that it's not easy. It's not like that. How many times we went on a trip and it was worse, actually. Trying to apply all these advices that are futile. And then, well, putting all the pressure from everyone, it's hard to carry the weight of others. And it's so much like that, is that we don't tell anyone, maybe if we're going under treatment. It's harder to tell everyone around you that the treatment didn't work than accepting it in your soul. And you ask yourself in this path about desire, and it's good. And a Spanish psychologist in this documentary, Baby on Demand, and you can watch it in the platforms Flow, Disney, or I can give you the link through this team. In this documentary, where the deep desire of being a parent is explored against all odds, one of the psychologists asked herself, why do I want to be a mother? Very few people stop and ask themselves. Truthfully, it's important to ask that question because it's tied to the idea of where am I willing to go in this quest, and how important it is to take care of yourself. So this is not torture or means a broken couple or your body very harmed. And that's so personal. Just like everyone else knows, the ones on the other side know when to let go. The truth is that life transforms outside time sometimes, and time is really important in this search. Am I going to have my period this month? Another month that it didn't come. Time goes by and I keep postponing, and then I plan, but then I postpone because I might have a children, because I might not take advantage of it, and life transforms in this sort of threshold, this bracket, this thing out of time where your life sort of freezes out, and that's not easy. And also the magic pills. One of the things that I identified through the stories, that many of us find solace in faith or in alternative medicine, and or alternative medicine. Reiki, acupuncture, drops of energized water. I took them. Healers, family constellations, in Argentina that there is this virgin, the virgin of the hill, pray to this virgin for a child. And when I went there, coming from an agnostic family at that time, where I felt a non-believer, I told my husband, I'm gonna climb this hill on my knees if it guaranteed the possibility to have another child. With this fervor, with this faith, and of course when there is no risk, they help, because it's demonstrated that sometimes conventional medicine, together with conventional medicine, you can do other things that are connected to taking care of your body, connecting to your spirit, connecting to your inner self, to look inwards. And the big question, together with why do I want to have a child, this helps define if it's a whim or a stubborn or egotistical, or if it's really something that it's more related to give love and being able to open our minds and think about other possibilities, even adoption. Everyone has to discover. One of the things that I could leave, your own path. Not everything is for everyone. When you have to decide a donor or not, every woman lives it in a different way. What Romina, this woman that puts humor into everything, took 1 week of grieving because maybe because she's adopted, and when she had to choose the donor, she told the doctor, well, the more different the better, because I've been told that from mixtures you get the best. What took her 1 week to accept, other women, Victoria, it was impossible, for example. And it took me 1 year of grieving, where I had to accept that I wasn't going to be a conventional mother and facing ghosts related to thinking that we're going to be a mother from a different egg that is not ours, and imagine things like, and is my gonna child recognize herself in my smile, and maybe tomorrow that child finds a half a sibling, or from a person born from the same donor, as soap operas. Am I the mother, or is the donor the mother? And to be able to analyze those fears of believing that similarity makes motherhood. In my case, there is no size fits all. It took me a year after putting all this ghost on the table and asking myself, why do I want to be a mother? I decided to go for a donor. And in this process, I found these words of Stella Chardon, a psychologist that I respect so much. And she's part of this beautiful event that says the following. She had 2 daughters from donors. Stella wrote, it's not going to have the shape of your eyes or your mouth. It's not going to have your blood. But it's mine, the child of my blood. It's not going to have the skin of my father, of his height. Was she going to be diabetic like my grandma? Is she going to have thyroid issues as me? Is it better? Is it worse? Or is it more or less the same? I received those eggs as the one who is waiting for an organ donation. I received them to open a door for life. I received them to give that mouth a reason to smile and those eyes to cry and to take care of the body that doesn't have my genes or is mine. Because a child is not property, it's an individual. A child is not property. A child is one of the most beautiful things that made her realize what it is to be a mother. Well, to close, I want to tell you how my story ended after reading all this and accept the donation, the egg donation, that it was another possible happy ending. I embraced it with all my soul and joy. And I remember telling it. I was never ashamed of that. It was not a matter of prejudice. And I always thought that my child had the right to know his origin. And we decided with my husband. He went with me. And we built it step by step. And after receiving a donor, I found myself telling the story to strangers as it was a project of the new year. I have the certainty it was going to work. The most difficult part was over, going through this inner process. When I decided, I remember that 1st of January, we were going to celebrate New Year's Eve. We stopped at my house doorstep. It was cold. It was after the New Year's Eve celebration. And I told my husband, if this is what we have to do, let's do it. With a donor, it's gonna be okay. With responsibility, the truth, with love, professional support, it's gonna be okay. Because this comes out of love. And it lifted a huge weight from my shoulders. We came after holidays and we started the process to receive the egg, to be in sync with the menstrual cycle. And I recovered so much joy that I hadn't in so many years. I have moved. I had went through all the grievings, but then we went for a trip. We connected with my husband. Everything was different. And then February came, 2013. My period was not there. I missed my period and I was like, why? Why is everything so hard? I made the decision and now this is happening, and my gynecologist forced me to do the pregnancy test. And I did it on a 14th of February, locked in my bathroom. Just like one more thing, because I was sure that it's going to be negative. My son outside yelling, the TV on. I did the test, and I guess against all odds, I was pregnant of my second son, Joaquin. And it was incredible. He came naturally without expecting it. It was the conclusion of love. It was something like magic. But I always felt that it didn't matter the way this child came. Whatever path was okay, because love was the guide. And that finding this difficulty at 33, when I was diagnosed with premature menopause, it implied a lot of growth at a privileged age, because you come out stronger. You come out knowing that a pregnancy is a process. And my idea with this ending is to write stories and to preach about it. What it means to search for a child. That is not, there are no certainties, but if you process it, if you move and look, instead of locking yourself up in tears, and you face your fears and look for help and listen to your intuition, it's very likely, just like many women that achieve that objective, to make it. Joaquin is 7, Lucas 12. And this book was dedicated to them. And like Miguel Espeche, this great psychologist, says, there's something that you learn from this search, is that beyond the result, no matter how the story ends, how your story ends, to everyone on the other side, it's important to know that life can be fruitful, and that infertility doesn't make life infertile, that life can really be fruitful in whatever way you choose, with or without that child, and that you have to move forward and not surrender. There are many paths to get to that. Alejandra, to finish, a doctor, when I asked her, what advice would you give to the people that are on this search for a child and cannot make it? And she said the following. Excuse me. The first thing to me is not to lose hope. Always, I recommend to find a doctor who is working on this and to have a fast answer. When you have an infertility study, you are able to tell the patient what to do to guide her. Of course, there's a group of people where you don't find the cause of infertility, but it's a minority, and there are many doctors that, for negligence, maybe they start to do many studies month after month, and the anxiety to know what's going on can turn apart the couple. And with the years, the fertility rate's low and everything gets harder. Once you know the diagnosis, it's important to decide according to your own time. Listen to the people who are cheering you up. Don't listen to the rest. Decide what you want and move forward with all the hope in the world. Finally, you should have your partner's accompaniment. It's a matter of two. Both of you have to do the test, listen to the results together. No matter who has the problem, you have to support each other. It's a good moment to show the love you have for each other. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for this space. I hope this was useful, that you take a lot of courage and strength, and especially love, with the ones who are with you walking through this path. Luciana, I am absolutely touched, just as when I read your book with Joaquin's story. You are the living example of how life can surprise us, and that in this path, you really don't know where you're going to end up. We're not the same before and after infertility. We end up being better persons, transformed people. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. It's a pleasure, and I hope to give a lot of strength. Luciana, I want to ask one more question, because I know it's a topic that we barely touched, and it's secondary infertility. You were already a mom of Lucas, and you were after a second child, what happened with the social questioning, what that meant to connect again with the desire of being a mom. There was a certain look that diminished my pain because I was already a mom, and it was very important when I started to listen to other cases going through secondary infertility. A lot of people said, but what are you complaining about? You already have a son. And the pain was the same. Because every person is a world. It's so hard to assess the measure of your emotions with a bar. And on the other side, to close the cycle of maternity is tough. Women with menopause, even if they decided not to have children, it can be sad. In my case, at 33, with a whole fertile life ahead of me and the dream of a family, of a big family, it was really tough. There was a voice outside who diminished, who undervalued that pain. And it invited me to take care of my child. Take care that he felt like he was enough. And try to put in words and to be with him. He was a boat. And he sustained me. And I enjoy so much my moment with him. It makes you value everything so much. It's common, but we don't say it enough. I didn't give it for granted. In this book I wrote about a woman who asked me for my first son, Lucas. She asked me if I wanted to have another child. She asked for Lucas. And I said, he's a demon. One is enough. But it was automatic. He was at that age where they want to kill themselves and you have to be all the time watching over them. And then you start to realize that you give a different value. You have to take care of the child you already have. For him to understand that it's simply a different process, that they are enough, and how to explain to them what are you going to do. It's a challenge, but they know. So the best thing is to be there and put it into words, because they know in the most delicate way, and the support of professionals. Secondary infertility implies taking care of your first children. Luciana, thank you for dignifying the desire of a second child. I know a lot of people are going to connect to your experience. You talked about the message about one of your testimonies. I'd like to close to listen to your message of hope for people who are watching us right now. Well, if there's something I learned in this path, is that there are no certainties. Not even you doctors who have statistics can say yes or no with certainty. There's always mystery. There is this mystery to life. You have to go processing and making choices and decisions. But it's important to always connect to yourself, being open to possibilities. And infertility doesn't make life infertile. And I come back to what I said. life can be fruitful in spite of the results, and that supporting each other, we go through this in a better way. Trust what you feel without feeling destroyed. Know that a lot of person have gone through this and we have moved forward. Look, move, explore possibilities, open to your own prejudices. Because in my experience, and in the experience of many people that I have interviewed, couples and people that look and make a lot of research are the ones who have the better results. Wonderful, Luciana. A big hug to you, and thank you so much for your presence in our event. See you soon. Goodbye. Big hug.